Good evening. And good evening to whoever is out there who's watching us. My name is Brendan Keaney. I'm the Artistic Director and CEO of DanceEast, and I'm going to be hosting this evening's proceedings, or at least getting it started. Sarah, Yuki, maybe you could introduce yourselves as well.
Definitely. Hi, I am Sarah Golding. I'm 50% of Say Dance. I'm currently in backstage at a theatre, which feels incredible. I feel really fortunate to be here. And hopefully you guys have just watched our dance film, TRANSIT-20, which was a collaboration with other South African dancers. But yeah, I'm Sarah Golding. Thank you for watching.
Hi, I'm Yuki. I'm the other 50% of Say Dance, and yeah, we were two other South African dancers, Teresa and Luke, who were part of Transit film as well.
Fantastic. So I love that film, and thank you so much for sharing it with us. But before we talk about that, I'd like to talk a little bit about you and Say Dance. People watching, if you want to ask questions, you can do by using the Q&A function. And I'll hopefully, as this conversation unfolds, we'll have a few questions to ask. I'd like you to start by telling us a little bit about, so Say Dance is a company now, you're a company. Maybe you could tell us a little bit, were you a company before this film, or how long have you been a company, and where were you before that?
It's kind of a long story, but also kind of short. I'll give you the kind of half and half version. So yeah, Yuki and I, our kind of dance careers have kind of been running parallel alongside each other since my BA training, and Yuki did a postgrad at Laban. We both trained at Trinity Laban. And we kind of did that thing where you kind of see each other in the hall and you're like, hey, how you doing? Nice to see you, but you never actually are in the studio together. And it wasn't until 2019, correct me if I'm wrong, Yuki, that we worked together for the first time with Kathy Waller Dance Company, who I'm sure a lot of you probably know. And that was the first time we were actually in the studio together, and we just like clicked in kind of every way. And one night we stayed at rehearsals late, and we were like, should we just make up a dance to this song? We were just like, oh, this song's it's such a good tune, like let's just make up some movement. So we just did, and for like 45 minutes we just danced and kind of made up a little routine, and we were like, how can we make this official? How can we make this kind of method of us working together in this kind of spontaneous, almost childlike fashion? How can we make it an official thing? So then we just decided to continue doing that. We just booked out studios and just kind of got together and just created work to songs that we enjoyed listening to. And then lockdown, and we kind of wanted to continue our journey creatively. And then, yeah, I'll let Yuki explain kind of how we kind of created Transit.
Yeah, so we actually, Sarah and I, when we were working together, we went to see a show at Barbican, which was performed by Riani Dance Theatre. It's a South African dance theatre company, and we went to see it together, and we were like both so excited about the fact that it was such a celebration of music and dance together. And then actually, since the lockdown, one of the previous company, Riani's company's member, Teresa, we worked together before in Johannesburg, and during the lockdown, because we hadn't spoken for such a long time, but because of the lockdown, we kind of reconnected again through social medias, and we're seeing each other's videos, and we're like, oh, we have a lot of time in our hand. So we're like, oh, shall we do some collaboration? And then from there, we're like, oh, maybe it'd be nice to have a bigger pool of a bit, not just two of us, but other dancers from South Africa and here. So I asked Sarah to come on board, and then Teresa asked Luke from Cape Town to join the project as well. So we became four leading dance artists who decided to come together and create something that is reflective of our time then, just in fast lockdown. That's how we started the project.
I've got three really good questions, actually. I'm not sure which order to take them in, because two of them aren't specifically related to the film. But I think they're good questions, and I think it'd be good to hear from you. The first question was about how does it feel like to be back in a theatre? Maybe we could take that back later at the end. But do remind me in case my list goes and I forget that one, because I think it's a really good question for us all. The second one was about the pandemic has been so devastating for so many artists. This film feels like a really positive thing, and I think, you know, generally some of the work that's come out through films and through digital media has been fantastic. But has there been anything else positive about lockdown for you two?
That's a really good question. That question took a curve that I wasn't ready for.
Yeah.
You know what? It's been obviously so tough in the obvious ways. But for me personally, and I'm only speaking for myself, I was before lockdown, I was kind of on tour with a performance company called Stomp. And I was really fortunate. I was on a world tour, and I was kind of having a really amazing time, and I loved being on tour. But when lockdown happened, I started being more creative because I wasn't on tour anymore. It kind of weirdly gave me opportunities to connect back into creating my own work and conversing more with Yuki and kind of making plans together, and just kind of being a bit more creative personally. And I think maybe I wouldn't have done that. I would have kind of been a little bit more stuck in my tour life and being on the road. And I think it allowed me to kind of come back and network with dancers who I hadn't seen and kind of been around for ages. So I think for me that was the good thing that came out of lockdown for me.
Yuki, can you think of any other? I mean, I think that's a pretty amazingly positive way to look at what's happened. I think it's really good. Anything else? Maybe if you haven't, we can come back to it. But
I can. Yeah, I think it's, for me, it was this completely, like, your activity has shrunk, like what Sarah said. You know, we are on tour or always outside of London and like traveling the world or touring the world and stuff. But then actually kind of connecting to more local, in a local way as well, that there's something that I didn't really connect before, just going to the park and enjoying the local availabilities and people, and actually start dancing or practicing in our local areas where I never done that before, like always going to the studio or like performances. And also I think it is suddenly Zoom and social media and became much more strong connection to completely other side of the world, but we can create DanceEast. That was trying to find the genuine connection through digital media became, I think it was a huge positive impact for art in one way.
That's great. So I've got some good questions coming in about the film. I think the first time I saw it, what I loved so much was that the fantastic sense of solitude. I really related to that sense of solitude. It really reminded of particularly those early days of the pandemic. And the first question I've got about the film was, did you film this yourselves with instructions, or were there film artists? How were the shots set up? And it's a question I had as well.
Sure. So it took, basically the four of us put together, plus our kind of DOP, Corey Baker, we put together like a storyboard, a shot list of what we needed to make this work. But we did have help with the filming. We did have professional videographers come and film us. It wasn't kind of on our iPhones, like in the corner of the room. We did have someone filming us, and they had discussed kind of what types of shots, what angles to make things be able to sew together nicely. But it was really important to us to get that feeling of us being on our own in a space and kind of maintaining the sense that the feeling that we were in that very moment was a feeling that we'd been in for weeks, you know, like it was something, we didn't want it to feel like this is our performance video. It was kind of like we wanted to create the energy that we had been feeling for weeks of being locked down. But yes, we did have people there filming for us.
And actually, there's a good sort of, it's not a supplementary question, but I think it follows on really well, which is with four choreographers in this film, who is in charge and how were the decisions made? How did that all happen?
Yeah, we all each had the responsibility, or we all had a share of say and making decisions. So actually that was one of the most challenging part, where we are all like listening to each other and make decisions, but also we all have a different ideas. So we used to have, like, since the beginning of the project, every week we had about 4 months almost, we had every week had a meeting to discuss about funding, discuss about the creative ideas, shortlist, and outside of rehearsal, we had numerous hours of meetings in order to come to one conclusion. Especially, yeah, I think the most time it took was for the shortlist and coming up with a storyboard for the film itself, because it was quite the idea itself was quite abstract. It's not like there's a story lying behind the, like telling a drama story. So I think it could have gone in any directions, but we all had to come together to create one narrative. So yeah, that took us quite a long time.
I think as well, just to add on to that, like I think that was the most difficult thing, was creating an agreement, because we were coming together from 4 different minds, and like Yuki said, it's not there's not a kind of clear narrative, it is quite abstract. So we all had a different opinion about every different aspect of it, from what we were wearing, what the music should be like, what the next shot should be, where it should be shot from. Creating material was the easiest part of it. We kind of just made it so easily, but it was because everyone's ideas were almost so pure that it was kind of like, how do we sew these ideas together that every person's idea is not used, but every person's idea marries, so that it creates one kind of 6-minute film that makes sense. And also we did make a documentary to go alongside it, and we documented the whole process, which was hours and hours and hours and hours of footage. And it was just like, watching that back was just Zoom meetings of us being like, okay, how are we going to decide this? It was just madness. Yeah.
But also on some of the Zoom sessions that we kept it, we were having like writing funding applications together, but playing music and having absolutely good time, and felt like we were in the same space. Even though we've actually never danced together or done anything together as 4 of us in real life in like a physical space. So that was also a very special moment, I think.
That leads on to a question I had, which was, and it's sort of, it relates to the fact, of course, you two have been used to dancing together, and now you're dancing apart. How did that feel?
The thing is that we had only danced together for a really short period of time before we made Transit. And I still think that Yuki and I have spent more time communicating online than we have in real life. Like, the amount of meetings and kind of sessions we've done together online massively, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Yuki, outweighs the time we've actually physically spent in the studio together. Because, as I say, like we kind of made our company, Yuki and I made our company super soon before the lockdown. So this past year and a bit has been the majority of time that we've kind of had together. But as I say, it's most of it's been online. So we didn't take a lot of getting used to it. It kind of felt quite natural at that point. We were like, oh, we're on screen again. Yeah.
I've got a great question here from Kath James, who you may know, she wants to know, what do you think you're going to take forward, as in working or making practice, that you would continue post-pandemic from this?
I would say actually somehow the digital platform made it more accessible to, and also being able to reach to more people in a way that we couldn't do before, because everything was, we had to share in the same space. And I think even the collaborators, we on the creative side of videographer, editing, or composer, actually composer on the Transit was also based in Colombia, where, so I feel like through pandemic, we really learned and found a way to collaborate internationally without being in the same space, which is a huge discovery. And we would really like to keep working on that, because we, as I say, we are collaborating with a number of musicians on our piece, and then they are all based in different parts of the world, and it's actually beautiful to be able to do that as well. So I think that's what my takeaway.
Yeah, totally agree. I think, you know, it's really opened up people's eyes to collaboration and long distance working not being a huge deal. And I think for freelancers, we have this feel of like, I can only commit to one thing at one time because I can only be in one place at one time. But actually, I feel like during this kind of lockdown time period, we've really learned that we can be in two places at once, kind of thing. Like, we can be physically working somewhere, then we can quickly jump on Zoom and do a class or have a meeting or collaborate. And I think it's really kind of created more opportunities for people in that respect.
So this is another follow-on question. I think it's absolutely related, which is, will you work together in this way again? Or are there any plans for further collaborations as a four? So is there any plans to bring those four together?
Yukes?
Oh, me? Yeah, sure. At the moment, initially we were thinking of coming together after doing this film. The film was like a fast phase, and we are hoping, but this pandemic has been longer than we anticipated. So we don't have a concrete plan yet. At the moment, we're focusing on what what we are going to do, because we have quite a lot of plan for this year and next year. So we are focusing on Say Dance at the moment.
Yeah, I think when we first kind of created the film, we were like, okay, then this is what we're going to do, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to tour together as a four. But as Yuki said, the pandemic's been a lot longer than I think everyone thought it was going to be, and you know, travel restrictions are lasting, especially in South Africa. But I think that's a door that will never be closed. We've kind of we've made this beautiful thing that represents our time as a four in lockdown, and it would be nice to kind of keep that door open to when we next have a period where everyone's available, to just pick it up and be like, okay, is that kind of light still lit? Should we pick it up and see if we can all somehow come together and get in a studio somewhere in the middle? Yeah, that would be the next step, I suppose, is us all meeting and actually dancing together for the first time in real life. So never say never. Watch this space.
I'm going to. This question harks back a little bit to an earlier theme you almost touched on, or sort of did touch on actually, but I think it sort of brings it a little bit. It adds onto it, which is, do you think lockdown was a full stop in your creativity that may have occurred naturally anyway throughout your career? And do you think dancers and choreographers at some point need quite a drastic stop to reevaluate what they wish to create?
As I mentioned before, I didn't know that I needed this. I didn't know that I needed to be pulled out of my previous lifestyle to be able to allow these creative opportunities to flourish. And that's something I would have never really known. I think at some point I would have been like, okay, I need to kind of steer my career elsewhere. But I think like another thing as freelancers, when something's going well, when something's kind of ticking over nicely, it's hard to pull yourself out of it, regardless of other things you might want to do. If you feel like, you know, I'm enjoying this lifestyle, I've got good people around me, the money's good, I'm performing, all those things that are kind of tick boxing. Yeah, it's kind of really difficult to pull yourself out of it. So for me personally, I definitely needed this shift, and it's really allowed me to create in different ways. And especially after doing Transit, I don't know, I never imagined that I'd make a piece in my living room or in my bedroom or whatever. Usually I'm quite like really physical on stage. That's kind of how I connect to dance. And it was really nice to just be like, oh, okay, I've got this chair. Okay, let me try and make something as physical. So I personally needed something to rip me out of my previous kind of like lifestyle and creative mindset. Yeah, over to you, Yuki.
No, I think you talked about it beautifully, so I'll leave it there.
Great. Getting a little bit back to the film, I think this is a question I really relate to. It says Transit-20 captures a certain feeling of loss and claustrophobia relating to lockdown 1. How has that feeling changed now that we're in a new lockdown?
Yeah, that's really interesting because, yeah, it actually, the Transit-20, we almost, when we're rehearsing and filming, we were already in the lockdown 2 in the UK. And I think for South Africa, it was still towards the end of lockdown 1. So Sarah and I were already like opened up a little bit, had a rehearsals outside, then coming back to living room to shoot and having rehearsals on Zoom was actually quite a like shift, because the idea of the film itself was about the transitioning from lockdown into out to going into outdoor world and then coming back, and this constant transition of like a state, like outer world of state, but also internally as well. And I feel we did feel a lot of, yeah, claustrophobic. The idea was that we were, you know, how much your life has been confined by these 4 walls and you can't get out of it, but then also you're going out and then back again, this sense of solitude and frustration. And I think a lot of us experienced in more intense roller coaster of emotions because there are less distractions outside, and so that your internal world became so much more. And that was quite, yeah. And then compared to that, now where we are in post lockdown 3, I guess, yeah, actually, to be honest, I was just watching now the film, and wow, the state of my inner world has changed a lot since the first lockdown or even second lockdown. Because I think by the third lockdown, I felt like I kind of got used to being confined by the walls. And now actually going out is a fresh breath of air. But at the same time, sometimes I feel a bit of like, oh, too much information, just going into the supermarket, seeing so many people, or getting on the tube and feeling a bit overwhelmed. So I think there are this constant transition of your inner state as well as the outer state, I guess. Did I answer the question?
Yes, I think you did. Yeah, yeah. Sarah, did you have anything to add?
I think Yuki smashed it. She can take that one.
So I've got, I'm almost feel like it's back to that first question I asked at the beginning, which is, how does it feel? You said you're in a theatre, Sarah. How does it feel being back in a theatre? What's it like?
Oh, it feels so good. I'm currently at the Duchess Theatre in the West End, and I'm in a tech session for a show called Cruise. Just a little plug there. I'm doing a bit of movement directing, but it's amazing to be here. And it's strange because I know that when the show opens, like next week, it's going to be social distance, people are going to be in masks, but there's something so comforting about just being in the space and hearing like music in a theatre. both Yuki and I are so passionate about music, and yeah, there's something about hearing music, sitting in theatre seats and just seeing the lights, and it feels so comforting, and yeah, a feeling obviously so many people haven't had for so long. But there's also something really crazy about it. Like, I'm in a dressing room of the show The Play Goes Wrong, and there's all these things up on the wall, and like people's kind of half-used makeup and pictures, and they obviously haven't been back here since their last show. So there's this real feeling of it's a little bit spooky as well. But yeah, it definitely feels like there's life being kind of breathed back into this space. So yeah, it feels great.
Fantastic. So I full circle as well. I want to know about Say Dance. What are the plans? What's happening? What's going on? What are you going to do? You know, you talked a little bit about how you began collaborating. I noticed there's still another question. So people are anxious to find out a little bit about Say Dance, where it's been, where it's going, and what's happening next.
Yeah, shall I go, Sarah?
Go ahead.
So yeah, we had a research and development for 2 weeks last summer. It's been like almost 1 year, I can't believe it. But so we are doing another like 3 weeks, fingers crossed for the funding, but we are rehearsing for 3 weeks to add more tracks, because we are creating a physical dance performance version of an album. And so we are hoping to have more musicians on board, to have more tracks choreographed, and hopefully we can't tell the details yet, but hopefully we have a mini outdoor performance tour this summer, and then have a creation, and we'll be at DanceEast as well, trying out some ideas in the new film studio, green screen studio. And so that hopefully we can create a version alternative to the live performance, so that we can have a UK tour next year with a film as well. So that's our plan coming up.
Nice.
So would you like to add something?
Yeah, I'll just speak actually a little bit about the album. So when I was talking before about when Yuki and I first worked together, and we had that kind of jam session in the studio after our rehearsals, that's literally what we've based our new creation on. So we're literally putting together an album of work. So we want it to have kind of like the format of what an album would have: song after song after song, new idea, song finishes, new idea, song finishes, new idea, a little interlude, maybe a little insight into either the artist's life or our life, or a little something in the middle to break up the songs, and then back into another song. So we're trying to encompass a lot of different types of music, a lot of different artists, a lot of not different dance styles, but different energies. So that there'll be something in there for everyone, and something that we can kind of like maybe cater it a little bit towards certain like locations or certain festivals. But essentially we're super, as two people, we're super passionate about music and love kind of like just playing. Like our warm-up when we did our rehearsal together literally was like us putting on music and just being like, okay, and then we would do a stretch and then just continue dancing. So that's kind of, yeah, we're creating this work out of enjoying music and having fun with it. And I think against the backdrop of this past year, it's really important for both of us to enjoy the creative process and keep it as fresh and as light and yeah, what we want it to be. So that's the ethos of the album. So make sure you keep an eye out, because there'll be something in there for everyone, I promise you.
Actually, I think that's a really good place to finish on. Just like to say a huge thanks, not just for the film, but for the work you've been doing at DanceEast. We really, really, really appreciate. Incredibly excited about what's coming next. Someone's put in the chat box, Vera has said, "Say is super cool," and I think that sums it up. So I think that's about it, actually. We were supposed to come in at past, and that's almost pretty perfectly on time. So good luck with the show, and really looking forward to seeing you again. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
See you.
for having us.
Bye.
Bye.